With the possibility of a no-deal Brexit being analysed on a now daily basis, the impacts of a supposedly clean departure from the EU are now coming to the limelight. Now, we've done quite a few videos on the hypothetical impacts of no deal. In fact, our first video on it came out about 2 years ago. But most of those videos have been based on third-party findings. In this video, we're going to take a look at Operation Yellowhammer and the government's official findings. For a couple of weeks, we've been talking about how close we are to achieving 300,000 subscribers, and now we're even closer than ever. Please consider subscribing to get us across the milestone. We have 3 announcements to make when we hit 300k, and we'll be posting about that as soon as we hit the milestone, so you can help us by dropping us a subscription. So let's start this video by taking a step back and briefly explain the process of emergency planning in the UK. Since 2001, emergency planning is undertaken by the Civil Contingencies SECRETARIAT, a high-level department located within the Cabinet Office, which exists to, in the words of the National Audit Office, improve the UK's ability to prepare for, respond to, and recover from emergencies and disruptive challenges. Given the underlying risk of a no-deal departure, in July 2018, the department began to work on contingency plans to address the short-term impacts of no deal in an operation entitled Operation Yellowhammer. The CCS identified 12 areas of risk across several areas, ranging from transportation systems, border access for goods and people, as well as energy, UK nationals in the EU, food and water supplies, and Northern Ireland. From these problem areas, the operation has 3 main objectives: to understand the major risks and to agree common planning assumption across government, to ensure that departures have contingency plans in place for the 12 identified work streams, and to put in place a command and control coordination structure. What, however, is more interesting is the dossier produced by the operation, seen by the Sunday Times. The dossier goes into detail about certain assessments of no-deal Brexit, based on a number of assumptions, which include the UK formally and fully reverting to the status of third country in the eyes of the European Union, with no preferential access to the European single market, as is the case now, as well as there being no bilateral deals between the EU and UK to mitigate the short-term impact. Also assuming that the rights of EU citizens in the UK are protected at the point of exit, and that there be a culture of low public and business readiness, which would continue to decrease to lower levels given the absence of a clear decision on the form of exit which third parties could prepare for. Also, they assume that there will be a lack of uniformity in business readiness, with larger businesses having the capacity and potential to better mitigate for a no deal. From this base scenario with the 5 main assumptions, certain findings were drawn, from the seemingly mundane issues of the date to the now inseparable issue of the Irish border. So, for the rest of the video, let's run through some of the key takeaways and what they mean for a no-deal Brexit. The original exit point was 11 PM UK time on the 29th of March, which this year fell on a Friday. The current point of exit is now 11 PM UK time on the 31st of October, which falls on a Thursday. What the dossier highlights is this change alone, in terms of the day of the week, is significant. Back in March, day 1 post-Brexit would have been a Saturday, where trading through ports would be diminished compared to on an average weekday. But by moving the exit day to a Thursday, day 1 is now on Friday, which means that it's a much busier day for trade. It's expected that France will impose mandatory controls for the EU's external border. Because of that, it's likely that on day 1, 50 to 85% of HGVs may not be ready for French customs. The dossier expects disruption to last for 3 months, before slightly improving to 50 to 70% of current capacity. At the same time, there will be border checks for UK nationals entering the European Union, causing disruption domestically at St Pancras and other international terminals in the UK. With 3/4 of medicines coming into the UK through the short straits into Dover and Folkestone, if unmitigated, the traffic disruption is expected to make medical supplies vulnerable to severe and extended delays. At the same time, it's expected that certain types of fresh food supply will decrease, reducing availability and choice, while simultaneously increasing price, a move particularly expected to affect vulnerable groups. Traffic disruption arising from a backlog of trucks at UK ports could end up affecting fuel, both directly if fuel trucks themselves are held up, or indirectly if the Dartford crossing in Kent is blocked. The dossier concludes that there's an elevated risk of supply to London and the southeast of England. According to the dossier, on day one of no deal, Her Majesty's government will activate the no new checks with limited exceptions model announced on March 13th, establishing a legislative framework and essential operations and a system on the ground to avoid the immediate risk of a return to a hard border on the UK side. UK nationals will lose their EU citizenship overnight and can expect to lose associated EU treaty rights and the access to services over time, or at least be required to access them on a different basis. According to the dossier, all EU member states have now published legislative proposals, but not all have passed legislation to secure all rights for UK nationals. Complex administrative procedures within member states, language barriers and uncertainty regarding the UK's political situation are contributing to some UK nationals being slow to take action. The dossier expects protests and counter-protests to take place across the UK, requiring significant dedication of police resources with the potential to exacerbate tensions. Fishing was a major point of discussion during the referendum, and it's expected that up to 282 EU and EEA fishing vessels will infringe on the UK's exclusive economic zone, with up to 129 vessels in English waters, 100 in Scottish waters, 40 in Welsh waters, and 13 in Northern Irish waters on day one alone. The infringing vessels are likely to provoke increased tensions, and may lead to clashes between fishing vessels. The public and businesses remain largely unprepared for no deal, with a growing exit fatigue arising from the lack of a clear picture of exactly what future relationship with the EU will be, failing to provide a concrete situation for third parties to prepare for. The issue of preparation is not a new one, however, with a Cabinet Office source telling the Sunday Times that successive UK governments have a long history of failing to prepare their citizens to be resilient for their own emergencies. A senior source in the aftermath of this document's leak said that this is not Project Fear. This is the most realistic assessment of what the public face with a no deal. These are likely, basic, reasonable scenarios, not the worst case. Michael Gove, the Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster, whose role includes the responsibility for the preparations for a no-deal departure, was quick to refute the findings of the dossier, citing that the impacts were the absolute worst case, and that the government has taken significant additional steps with a significant acceleration in preparing for a departure on the 31st of October, with or without a deal, further stressing that the dossier is now old. Her Majesty's Government of Gibraltar was also quick to counter the leaked documents. In a statement released on Sunday, they branded the Times report as out of date and wrong on Gibraltar. In their statement, they indicated that they've already dealt with the issues raised in the Yellowhammer briefings, including the management of goods, foodstuffs, waste, medicine, and the flow of people and vehicles across the frontier. It seems that even though it's an official government document, albeit a leaked one, people still can't agree on its contents. Even if this is the worst case scenario, and if things have improved since then, this dossier certainly doesn't paint a glowing picture of post-Brexit Britain. Just a final thing to finish this video on. Last week we mentioned the enamel pin badges we were selling over on our store. These pins were originally available for Patreon backers, but at the end of last week, we made them available to all of you. Turns out, you guys liked the badges more than we expected, and we very quickly sold out of a number of the designs. Because of that, we've now restocked the UK, US, Netherlands, and Canada badges. And I'm also pleased to announce that we'll be making a second series of badges. That's 10 new badges. We've announced 4 of the designs already. They will be a new larger version of the UK pin, an EU badge, a Scotland design, and a badge for Australia. All of those badges are available for pre-order now on our website, and if you order them now, they'll be sent to you immediately once we have them. As I said, we'll also have 6 more designs in this series, so we're looking for your contribution. We've already asked patrons what designs they want to see, and they chose the EU and Scotland. So if you want to have your say and help us choose the other designs, you can head over to our Facebook page. Over on Facebook, we've asked you what design you'd like to see us make next, and whichever gets the most comments is the one we'll make. Head over to facebook.com/TLDR News UK to have your vote and let us know what design you'd like to see. And if you want to buy any of those designs, you can do so on tldrnews.co.uk/store. If you enjoyed this video and want to be kept up to date with what happens surrounding Brexit and other news, then be sure to subscribe to this channel. You can also find us across other social networks simply by searching for TLDR News. And if you want your name featured at the end of the videos, just like these people, then be sure to back us on Patreon. There's a link to that in the description.